Hi, good afternoon, doctor. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Welcome. We have Dr. Nilesh Goyal with us. He's the director of Juvenis Clinic out of Santa Cruz West. He is currently a cosmetic dermatologist practicing at two of the very prominent hospitals in Mumbai, India. And he's a trained specialist dermatological procedures like he does procedures like liposculpting and hair transplant surgery, and he's done that in US, UK, as well as Canada. He's also active member of various dermatosurgical societies across the world, and his current expertise has also scar correction, including other specialties. Thank you so much, doctor. Appreciate your time
Thank
today.
you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
How are you doing, sir?
Absolutely fine. Just the lockdown has got us bound inside the house and made us do all the housework. But that's part of life. So we are adhering by the rules of the government and trying to make the most of it. It has affected all of us at home, children, wife, parents, myself. Uh, well, spending more quality time with family in a way, watching all serials, but would have liked to do some real work as well.
Yeah, we all would like to, I'm sure. So you can safely say that you've added a couple of household chores to your resume, which you were
Absolutely, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Absolutely, personal skill level has gone up, and I can think of another profession now: house cleaning job.
not kidding. If the economy keeps going like this, then probably you have something to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can always bank upon it.
Yeah.
I can start some professional services.
All right. Thank you again. Like I said, thank you for your time. We know we have all the time in our hands right now, but still, appreciate your time to give it to us. I would like to directly dive into the main topic over here is uh, how is it affecting your current practice, doctor? Are you even going to
So,
hospitals? Are you even going to your clinic?
well, when the lockdown started, obviously there was a lot of confusion. There was sort of confusion in the minds of the patients, confusion in the minds of us that what do we do? So we stuck to the guidelines and we said, okay, fine, let's stop everything. So as dermatology being a non-essential field of medicine, where really patients don't have any danger to their life with these diseases, uh, we all stuck to our houses. Patients have stuck to their houses. We are stuck to our houses. Clinics got closed because staff couldn't travel at such a. We didn't have any essential travel passes for them. So clinics have closed. Even the hospital outpatient departments are shut. But in the last 2 weeks, the government directive, or rather the BMC, has directed all the hospitals and medical establishments to reopen. Uh, and we have to provide service, which is fair enough, making sense that we are an essential commodity at the end of the day, even though not an emergency branch. So we are trying to get back to our feet, but the issue here is that patients are not very sure whether they should step out of the house, whether they should come to a place like a hospital for seeing a doctor, because hospitals are the source of infection. They are the place where the infection is thriving. So fair enough, that makes a lot of sense to me, and that has made a bigger impact because we are not able to, even though uh, we keep our offices open, our clinics open, there are no patients walking in because they are not sure whether they should come. On the other hand, we are also afraid that if I am sitting in my clinic, I'm not sure the patient walking in is going to be positive or negative, which is a very genuine fear because these days a lot of medical workers, including nurses and doctors, are getting affected in all the hospitals. They're turning positive. So it's having a negative impact on both sides, the
Yeah.
providers and the seekers.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a big worry for our specialty,
Yeah.
especially in the coming 3 to 6 months or maybe a year.
Hmm.
We don't know how long this thing will go on. So it has affected us. The only way I am looking at my patients or my patients are contacting me is by means of a video consultation.
Hmm.
So we do that as and when patients need, they
Yeah.
contact me, or rather they contact my secretary, and we come up with a suitable timing where
Hmm.
we go online and I meet them and then we discuss things. And then I send them a prescription online, which they then take it to their nearby chemist and get it validated.
Okay, and that's probably the only way it looks like in the near future, right? Because, like you said, a lot of patients are worried to go outside, and since it's not an essential thing, not a life-threatening thing, they would probably delay it for a couple of weeks unless it really bothers them on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely, absolutely, that's right. So they wait and wait and wait. They're also waiting for the lockdown to open up. Then they can come and see me personally. But then if they contact my secretary, we are giving them the option that you can either go to the hospital, because I am going to one of my hospitals and sitting in the outpatients, or they can come online and meet me online, and I'm absolutely open to it. In fact, let me just make you aware of it. I am actually quite used to the online version because I've been doing it for the last 4 years. And I had it integrated into my website 4 years ago, and we had offered this service where patients who were not from the city, not from Bombay, who are from outside the city, who come from far away, or who are traveling out of the city for some work or some studies or whatever. And if they need a skin consultation from abroad or anywhere in India, they could contact me and I could give them an online consultation. And that was integrated into my website. We were using one of the video interfaces and it was working very well. They had a portal to make a payment. So I'm actually quite used to the video consultation. I have a lot of my patients like the idea. In fact, all of my patients have actually been very appreciative of this service that I'm giving to my patients. So I feel this is a very good thing. Thankfully, since the lockdown has started, the Indian Medical Association and our dermatology associations have all sanctified the use of video consultation as a mode of giving advice to patients. So now it's become official, but it was something which I always thought could work in dermatology very well, and so we've been using it.
You were ahead of the curve even before this thing happened at that time. So you were using technology much.
Looks like.
Yeah, so that's
absolutely looks like it.
Even some of your patients were used to it. You know, look at what has happened with a couple of big online conferencing. A lot of schools which were not doing homeschooling or online schooling are compulsory doing it now. So now this is the new way of life where you need to get something, you just contact somebody online and you get in touch.
Absolutely.
With them, you get in touch with them right away. And that's where the entire efforts are going to be put in the future as well. So when patients don't come, is the payments and all that are secured as well? You get from the patients?
No, not really, not at all. We are daily wage workers in the true sense. If I see a patient, I get paid. So now that I'm not seeing patients or I'm hardly meeting one or two in a day or 3 maximum in a day online, so I just get paid for those 3 consultations. And due to the corona times when people are not earning themselves very much, we have had to further slash down our consultation fees. So you can imagine it's a huge setback to the entire earning. And in a month or two, the reality is going to hit us hard with our outgoings being the same. It's going to be a big problem. So we are hoping and praying that all of this gets over sooner rather than later.
But you know, and that's a very harsh reality for a lot of people in this industry, as well as in all the businesses as well. The expenses still remain the same because you have people to pay for. They have their own jobs. You know, from a humanitarian point of view, you want your staff to get paid as well. But there's only so much you can keep doing, right? Eventually, if there's no income coming in, you have to cut corners. You have to cut all these expenses to make sure you are surviving, so that whenever the good time comes, you can get back into the normal zone and not take.
Absolutely. That is another worry, that we'll have to cut corners in our practice as well. So we can't be very lavish with the way we use things. We are also consumers, so we use a lot of our disposable stuff. So we have to be very careful about that. Having said that, this particular lockdown and this particular phase where patients are refusing to travel will have a big impact, or rather much bigger impact, on the cosmetology aspect of our practice rather than the true dermatology aspect, because dermatology diseases are something for which the patient may not wait for too long, maybe a week, 10 days, 2 weeks maximum, then start seeking out the doctor. But for cosmetology patients, may or may not really think about it, because it's anyway a luxury item. And in the day of having not being paid enough, or a lot of patients who are earners, they might start thinking about saving and not wanting to spend on on cosmetics or even cosmetic consultations for that matter.
Hmm.
So that is something which we are worried about. Mainly,
And what do you think is your general is a general doctor? Is it the incomes are more from dermatology or is incomes more from the cosmetic side of the business?
so uh, incomes are always more from the cosmetic side of things, and that's why there's a huge
Yeah,
surge in the number of
yeah,
cosmetologists in our country and even across the world. Actually, I shouldn't blame just our country.
yeah.
So, but cosmetology has comes with a price. It has got a lot of huge investment as well. You have
Hmm.
to invest in a lot of machines and equipment which has to be used, and you need a lot of staff, a
Hmm.
lot of space. So all that comes to the price. So the prices and everything gets equalized.
Yeah,
But what I'm saying is that I specialize in a lot of surgical procedures. Now,
got it.
they don't need investment in the true sense,
Hmm.
but I need a patient to come to me and I need to do the surgery. And
Correct.
that's where the earning is much higher
Yeah.
in terms of. So, cosmetic surgery
Hmm.
is the biggest earner in
Yeah.
today's era.
Right.
In terms of if you go to see doing procedures like hair transplant surgeries, liposuction, Botox, fillers,
Yeah.
all those things have got much higher returns compared to the usual dermatology consultations.
Hmm.
Even though let's not deny the fact that dermatology consultations are bread and butter,
Yeah.
but who wants to live just on bread and butter?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially with all the expenses which are staying common, uh,
Hmm.
there has to be. So I mean, from just talking, what would you want the government to do for your particular industry? I mean, you've seen major hits happening all over the industry as well, and a lot of big governments like the US are providing some stimulus packages to even common people, not just business owners. What would you think the government of India should do ideally to kind of protect, because there'll be a large number of doctors who will be out of jobs now, basically, and the expenses are still high.
So government of India can indirectly help us. Uh, what I by that I mean is, if the government is able to get other businesses, all the other industries running, that will have a huge impact on our business,
Mhm.
because our what do you say, our customers
Yeah,
are all working in the industry, and if they do well,
yeah,
so will they come to us and spend their money. So we are like waiting for the government to improve the entire economy, and that has a big impact on the cosmetic aspect of our practice,
Mhm.
because cosmetics will work, or people would go for cosmetics only when they have enough to survive,
Yeah.
and if they have enough to live upon, and then the extra can be spent on their appearance and everything. So that's where our my aim would be, that I would hope that the government is able to change the economic situation of the country and get back on the economy on its wheels as fast as possible, as soon as possible.
But even your colleagues in the industry, the other specialities, they must be suffering the same issues, right? Whether it's any,
Yeah,
most essential. If you got a heart attack, you have to go to the hospital. But if it's an elective heart surgery, you can actually wait for 3, 4 months, 6 months, and not take that call.
absolutely. Well, there are many specialties which are getting affected. For example, I was just talking to a ophthalmology, an eye doctor, friend of mine, and he was saying, "Gone are the days when we are going to do any surgeries now. If it's not an emergency eye surgery, nobody would want to come to the hospital to do a surgery,
Mhm.
because it's dangerous to come to the hospital.
Yeah,
Patients are not wanting to come to. They can always postpone their surgeries.
right.
You could postpone for the next 6 months. You would want to wait for 1 year. So that's going to have a negative impact on all the professions of all the aspects of medical
Yeah,
fields as well.
yeah,
Because unless and until it's life threatening or it's too discomforting for normal living, patients will not go to the hospital to get themselves sorted.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
So,
we've heard these reports where, now getting back to coronavirus a little bit, I would like to pick
mhm.
your brains on that. They talk about these HQT. I'm not sure which medicine is that, where there.
HCQS, yeah, HCQ.
So there are writings about it that Trump has asked for almost 36 million tablets from Indian government. They've already delivered that. Secondly, that medicine has been used in India for quite a bit of time. thirdly, what I've also heard is the numbers in India are low because we all got BCGs and malaria vaccines during our during our childhood, and that's what is kind of saving us as well compared to the other Western countries. Is that what is the truth about it, and what do you think? Why the numbers are so low in India? It's only 15,000-16,000 cases compared to
Yes,
almost,
absolutely.
compared to only 700, say close to 700-800,000 cases in the US.
Well, there are many factors for it. We cannot be. I mean, let me say it's a speculation that we are saved because of the BCG vaccination and the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. However, there have been studies or there have been findings in COVID positive patients who have had high rubella antibodies being produced in the body, which could mean that the virus is stimulating the rubella part of the immune system. And that could be the reason why we are not seeing such high mortality in our country. The affection of new cases is totally not because of the vaccines. It is just purely because we started the lockdown way too early in the course of this particular epidemic, and that lockdown has significantly reduced the faster spread of the virus.
Yeah.
Apart from a few loose incidents which have happened in Bombay and Delhi, I don't think we've had any major gatherings and any major sort of meetings which could have propagated the rapid spread of the virus. Second aspect to it is the hydroxychloroquine. Now, hydroxychloroquine is a drug which we've been using for the last maybe 30, 40 years. I don't know since when it started. And it is used regularly for malaria. And we have been using it. I mean, I have had malaria twice and I know how horrible that drug is. But then it is a lifesaver when it comes to malaria. And this drug has been shown during its pharmacological studies that it can have an antiviral effect, or rather it reduces the virus from spreading in the body of the host. And it is that same mechanism which is being put to use, or this idea has been put to use in using it for coronavirus. And that's how we are trying to, the medical field is trying to save some of the patients. In fact, this thing about hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis for all healthcare workers is being followed in many hospitals in India. In fact, my own hospital has given us the medication, and it is also being followed abroad as well. We don't have any right figures as to how effective this is, whether it's really working or not, whether it's really doing something, because that needs a proper study. We are just working on speculation here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's going to treat a patient and get them better, because there's a lot of anecdotal reports coming on the WhatsApp from different sources. This could be some hospital, some doctor in US, some doctor in UK, some doctor in India, but we can't really be banking on those. So there is a lot of drugs being used all across the world. There are various antiviral drugs which are being used in addition to just the hydroxychloroquine. And there have been reports of these also working in patients. So keep our fingers crossed. Let's see if things work. But at the moment, I am on hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis, hoping that it will save me from a potential infection.
Oh, you are? And you can take it on a regular basis, or do you recommend to go through it?
No, the prophylaxis is the first day you take it twice, and then you take it once a week for the next 7 weeks. So that's the recommendation by the ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research. So we are following that at the moment. And this is generally being followed all over the world as well. So we are hoping that this should help us. But despite that, there is huge number of medical professionals in Bombay itself who are getting affected. So we're not sure whether it's something to do with the virus not being helped, or the person's immunity is to be blamed.
And there is another therapy, which is the plasma therapy, I heard, which is doing the antibodies, is to get the antibodies from the already infected and then cured patient to help. One of my friend from college times, unfortunately, he got infected. He's in Dallas right now and struggling for his life. And they've tried a plasma therapy on him. It has worked. He's recovering slowly, but there is positive signs to that. So,
oh, good, wonderful.
So, considering there is going to be lakhs of people infected, so if that could be part of one of these, the procedures, right?
Absolutely. So plasma therapy is not a new concept. It's a very old concept, has been used since, at least when I was a medical student, we knew about it, which was 30 years ago. So definitely it is a very old concept, maybe more than 30 years now, definitely. And it is something where it's logical that if a person who's infected and recovered would have the antibody against the virus in his system, and you take those antibodies and you give it to the person who's unable to produce those antibodies,
Yeah.
or who's struggling to produce those antibodies, and that way you can manage to give him some strength. It's like a booster, it's like a help, it's like giving strength to a person who's unable to stand up straight, and
Yeah.
if he gets one more set of crutches, he's able to stand straight and could possibly walk. So it's something on those lines, that you are trying to help the person's immune system by giving it a little bit of help in producing these you give a fresh supply of antibodies, and that helps the patient to fight the virus better. That's the idea behind it, and I'm sure your friend must be recovering only on that basis.
Yeah.
So that is a very good good thought. It's just that there are again a lot of issues surrounding it, because it's a transfer of a fluid from one person to the other. So there's a lot of sort of guidelines given by the government about, it's like a blood transfusion, and blood transfusion is a live organ transfusion. So it is something to be done in the hospital setup. There's a lot of regulations behind it. So all that will have to be followed. And I'm sure doctors who are in the front line fighting the coronavirus in India, they have already thought about it. And this therapy will be used in patients. In fact, on the Doordarshan television, I was seeing the other day, and there was the director of AIMS, New Delhi, was speaking about the same plasma therapy and said, we will be employing it when we need it.
Got it. It's a case by case scenario. You can't.
It's a case by case. It's not the first line therapy. It can't be the first line therapy,
Okay.
but it can be employed in cases where where nothing else is working. When the patient, it's like a fight to stop the patient from dying.
So in an ideal scenario, if I've heard two sides of the stories. One is people say the cure, like Trump said, the cure cannot be worse than the disease, right? Now the cure is the lockdown, the so-called lockdown. Now it is impacting billions of people around the world for their livelihood and all that. And his mentality has been so-called the underlining or the between the lines is open the economy, let few people die. Millions are anyways dying with other reasons, but we can't have billions locked down at home. And do this till the time the vaccine comes out. So it was 18 months, 24 months, we don't know when the vaccine comes out, right? But open the economy. And the other set of medical, the medical side of the thing, we can't open the economy. You can't have people interacting with each other physically. And you can't, there could be millions of people dying. It's not just thousands as well.
Absolutely right.
What's your take? What do you think the government should do?
So, okay, first and foremost, there is no cure for this virus.
Yeah.
And the lockdown is not a cure by any means.
Yeah.
Lockdown is just a way of reducing the workload and the burden on the medical infrastructure.
Yes.
No city, no country is capable enough to have or to manage lakhs and lakhs of ill patients at the same time. And you can see that because even New York, which is the most badly hit city in the world, is struggling under the effect of sheer number of patients coming to them. They don't have ventilators, they don't have hospital beds, they don't have enough infrastructure, they don't have enough medical personnel to manage these patients. So that is a genuine problem. In India, which is a very highly densely populated, with cities and even towns which are densely populated, opening up the economy or allowing people to interact, forget the opening up the economy, even allowing people to interact can lead to a rapid spread of the virus. And the virus does not spare anyone. As you know, even the Prime Minister of England was affected. So you have to realize that if you get too many people affected at the same time, and God forbid, if many of them are seriously unwell, we will just not have the space to save them. We won't have the chance to save them because we don't have that good medical infrastructure. So the medics saying that don't allow people to interact is genuine concern for lives. And that has to be heeded by the government. The government cannot just work on just trying to open up the economy. Economy opening up, fair enough. They're looking at from the economic prospect from point of view. They're looking at people surviving because they want money to survive. But at the same time, if they have the virus, they will not survive anyway.
Yeah.
So my take is there's got to be a judicious balance between the two, which we are now entering into. From tomorrow onwards, the government is trying to do a partial opening up of lockdown in certain areas, which is a very, very wisely thought decision that we have to start opening up slowly, because that will give us an idea whether are we ready for a full open of the lockdown. Because if you're going to open up the whole lockdown, we need to be knowing what kind of dangers are we looking at. And so a partial opening of the lockdown will help us a lot in understanding the current scenario, how fast the cases are going to spread, how much workload is going to come to the medical infrastructure, and we'll get tested properly. But if that is going to put the medical system into complete dire straits, then we will have to go back to full complete lockdown again. And that's the only way to prevent the rapid spread of disease. Even while we are on lockdown, we still have 15,000 cases, where we were about not more than 1,000 cases when we started the full lockdown.
Yeah.
So despite the lockdown, we still have around 14,000 cases coming up, of which nearly 500 people have died. So we need to be careful about it. So we need to have a judicious balance between the two.
And that's something which everybody's talking about, that you have a lockdown when you have 1,000 people, then you have another lockdown 2.0 when you have 10-12,000 people. This lockdown will keep on continuing, because from that same logic of when it opens, or so-called opens on 3rd May, can he open when you have 40-50,000 people infected? That is again going to be that big question, right? I think it's a big task on the Prime Minister to think both aspects.
Absolutely. They're working tirelessly. They're trying to anticipate. They're trying to project what is going to happen and work accordingly. But I would like to say that it would be very, very highly unrealistic to expect any kind of leeway in the lockdown on 3rd of May.
Yeah.
We are going to extend it till at least a month beyond 3rd May, because only then will we be able to prevent rapid spread of the virus. Otherwise, the virus is going to spread really big time. And already our hospitals are actually crumbling. We have so many hospitals where we don't have enough staff to work, and doctors and nurses are getting infected, and they are worried what's going to happen to them, because the protection and the protocol systems in India are way too lax.
Yeah.
They're not being followed properly by all the hospitals or all the medical establishments properly. So we have a long way to go to correct our previous fallacies. And maybe this lockdown will help us in giving us some more time to improve our systems and get our working in place before we open up the entire economy.
So let's just say the best case scenario, you get 18 months time, you get a vaccine in place. I heard, and I've read a couple of times here and there, that it could take at least 18 months to 24 months. That's on a very bullish mentality that you might get something. And there are companies like Johnson & Johnson and maybe other companies are also trying to create a vaccine and put it in mass production, even without the trials, because we are at this part of this world where instead of you waiting for the trials to come up with the results, we just produce right now, and hopefully it would work. So by the time 16, 17, 18 months happen, you have mass vaccines in place. You can't wait for the vaccines approvals and then you do a mass production. That would take another 6 months to 8 months to do that as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the WHO and other organizations are also getting a lot of funding. I heard from the private, like Bill Gates is putting a lot of money in this and pumping it into pharmaceutical companies to produce that, which is a great noble gesture.
It's the need of the hour.
Yeah, it's a need of the hour.
It's a need of the hour, and he's doing great. He's doing absolutely the right thing. And I'm not sure by US, which has stopped the funding of the WHO, is doing any good to mankind.
Yeah.
But as you rightly said, we have to wait for the vaccine. Until the vaccine comes out, we will not be able to have a say that, yes, we have conquered the virus, or we have found something to stop us from getting the virus. But the viruses are very dangerous. They can change themselves, which we call as mutation.
Yeah.
And a mutation can produce a new type of virus. So it can be an altered form. It's like the like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so you can have the worst form coming out again. And so the disease can keep on continuing in that sense. And that is one of the biggest worries, which we as medics always fear, that viruses can change. And so we had the same kind of problems when we had the HIV come in 30 years ago. 20 years ago. And no, sorry, 30 years. Yeah, exactly, 30 years. So the HIV was also a problem, and we still haven't got a vaccine for HIV. But we know how to prevent the HIV, and we know how it spreads. So all the measures have been in place, and we are pretty much on top of it in terms of managing HIV. We've got good drugs to control it. Now, that has taken a good number of years to get on top of it. It took us at least 15 years to get the proper medications for HIV in place. But we can't wait for that long with Corona, because Corona is very fatal in the sense that it just kills you within a few days. HIV was not that bad. So we have to work very fast. And that's why this vaccine coming out sooner will be in the interest of mankind, because it's going to save at least a few people, if not all, from getting the virus again. And hopefully we'll all be in a better situation at that point. Till then, we'll have to just maybe have repeated lockdowns, repeated sort of social distancing, maybe doing more of video consultations for us. I mean, in dermatology, I think that's going to be the norm for the future, at least for the next 12 months, till we get the vaccine in our hand, till the people have the fears out of their mind.
I mean, for my personal thing, even if the school opens up, I'm not going to send my kids to school till the time the vaccine is out.
There you go. As a parent, you're justified in having these fears. So same way, this is going to have a bigger impact on a lot of things. I mean, kids are going to be forced to stay at home, do things from home. It's going to affect their health, their growth, their mental growth, their physical growth. It's going to be very tough for the next 6 to 12 months. And that's going to leave a big scar on everyone's minds. So maybe we're going to change for the worse or for the better. We don't know. Things are going to change.
Yeah, before 9/11, I was in the US, and I remember still going to drop my friend all the way to the gate of the plane. And gate of the plane, and I could do that. And after 9/11 happened, a lot of things changed. They had to change the security. You've not heard a single case after that, at least in America, because of the securities they put in. Now it's a normal that you need to go an hour and a half, 2 hours early at the airport, because there's going to be security screening of your bag, screening of yourself, your security. And I believe that's probably the change which we might see, that even if there'll be a lot of, you see these machines where people are walking in, they'll be like, disinfecting themselves before they walk in, wear gloves.
That's a possibility.
Wear masks. If they want to go out in public, make a mask compulsory, like they've already done in the lockdown right now.
On the same note, I just heard a rumor today. I mean, I call it a rumor because I'm not sure about it, that airlines are going to ask for COVID negative blood test before boarding the flight. I think that's a rumor. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but then if that happens, then we're going to have a big problem.
I
think to just board a flight as well.
Emirates is doing that. Emirates is saying that only COVID or negative patients can come on, and they have a basic testing going on before they actually get on board.
Yeah. So that's going to be, exactly. At the airport, they're going to set up facilities for testing the patients, or for the travelers before they board the flight. So that's going to be a big change in our airport time. We might have to go 6 hours before the flight rather than 3 hours. So that's going to have a bigger impact on our lives out there. Airports are going to be our next house now.
But there's a positive side to it. The world the nature seems to be enjoying it, and that we are all locked out. All the,
absolutely.
You see a lot of pictures and photos and videos coming, beautiful, amazing, and the pollution has gone down by 60-70%. And very fewer people are getting sick because of pollution. The deaths have gone down because of pollution rates going down and all that stuff. So there's some positives to that, but hopefully this is not the positive we would want in the long run,
No, I mean, see, what I feel is that, yes, this is the ideal situation people want to live in. I mean, especially when we in a crowded city like Bombay find the nature changing. It's a big change for us because we never get to see that. We are so busy with our day-to-day lives that we don't get a chance to see nature. But people who are living in smaller towns, smaller cities, smaller in villages, they are very close to nature all the time.
Yeah.
So they may not see a bigger change because their life has not changed much. The nature has not been damaged so much as it is happening here in our cities. So for us, it's a very welcome change, and it has to be maintained. Once we get back to normal routine, it's going to be back to the same rush. We're going to kill the nature. So I feel that all collectively, everyone should make an effort towards maintaining this kind of natural development, the nature's growth, and this will help us in living more healthier lives. Uh, I am a big proponent of exposing to sunlight in the morning, and I tell that to my patients. And now I make it a point to put that in the prescription as well. Every
Yeah.
patient, I tell them, sit in the sunlight every day in the morning between 7 and 8, because that's something which will keep you healthy for long. So it is important for us to recognize the benefits of nature, a good, healthy nature, because that will keep us healthy.
Mm.
And I think we should look at it in a very positive way rather than trying to only look at the negative things of, getting back to where we were before. We were no better than animals actually. We were just destroying the nature
Yeah, absolutely.
and being very selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. So any other points you think you could like to give to your viewers of what they can do at home to improve their immunity, to take, like you
Oh
said,
yeah, that's a
sunlight is a great point. And after I spoke to you personally, I've been doing that at least 10-15 minutes a day, if not more than that. And
so
yeah.
I see in dermatology we have 70% of our illnesses or the dermatological diseases cannot be cured. There's no cure for them. Just
Hmm.
like the coronavirus, we have only treatments which can control the illness.
Yeah.
So my take is that it's a play of the immune system, which makes you get unwell or which makes your disease get worse, and then gets controlled. And this has been very well documented, and patients realize it themselves when it comes to a disease like psoriasis. Now, psoriasis is the most commonest dermatological disease of the world. Nearly 2% of the world's population is affected by it. So it is a disease which is brought on by stress, gets worse during stress, and gets better when there is no stress. And patients realize it very well. Now, it's all a play of the immune system. If your immune system is healthy, you will not have that many upsets in it. You'll not have the disease getting worse. And that's exactly what happens in stress. So during stress, your immune system starts working haywire, or it doesn't work properly. It starts producing wrong things. It starts reacting to wrong things. And that's what leads to diseases like psoriasis, like urticaria, which is a disease of the hives, where people scratch themselves. You've got vitiligo, the white spot disease. So that disease also is something which we don't know the cause of it. Unfortunately, we also do not know the cause of most of these diseases which come up in dermatology, because they all are just a play of the immune system. Why should the immune system change? Uh, and clearly, it's because of the lifestyle. It's because of the things that we choose for our survival, for our living. What we think is right. We abuse our body, we abuse our health, and then make us as unwell, and then go to the doctors.
Hmm.
And that's my take on it. So
Hmm.
if we can avoid becoming unwell in the first place by following certain very basic things that our body needs rest at the right time and food at the right time.
Hmm.
If two things can be given in the right time, at the right time and the right proportion, then you will save yourself from a huge number of diseases, not just dermatological, every other disease. I'm referring to high blood pressure, diabetes, heart attacks,
Hmm.
strokes, all included. So my suggestions to my patients, all my patients, is that they should sleep early because that's what nature intends us to do. We are not born to stay awake in the night. And second thing, we should be exposing ourselves to some amount of sunlight because we lead a huge indoor style lifestyle where we are indoors all the time.
Hmm.
So in the mornings, which is a good time when the sun is not too harsh,
Hmm.
getting up in the morning, sitting in the sunlight for some time brings a renewed vigor and energy in your body, which helps you to carry you forward in the whole day with all your activities. It also helps you to make some good amount of vitamin D, and that vitamin D will help you a lot in keeping your immune system intact, because vitamin D is very important for the health of our immune system.
Hmm.
And the immune system, virtually 90% of the patients who come into my clinic with dermatological diseases all have very low vitamin D levels. And that is something which I used to test for every patient of mine, because I used to think, oh yes, let me check and then give. But in the last 7, 8 years, I've realized there's just no point in testing. Everyone's low. So
Yeah.
might as well give them the treatment.
Yeah.
So the best way to make vitamin D, sit in the sunlight. There's no food supplement which contains it, unless the person wants to live on tablets all their life. But that again is not healthy, because absorption of vitamin D from the gut is very doubtful in some cases. So it's better to make it naturally, and the best way is being in the sunlight. And that helps in many ways, because the sun is the only reason why life exists on Earth.
Yeah, very true.
So we need to give importance to that sunlight and take in as much benefit of it as we can.
That's great insight, doctor. I really appreciate that you sharing that information.
One more important thing is people have to eat on time. Eating food on time is the other most important thing which you need to give importance to, and that is the only way your body can remain healthy. You can't imagine a car running on reserve petrol all the time. It will choke up your engine. So you need to have a tank full of petrol, and unless you give nourishment to your body, you will not be able to perform adequately in whatever job or studies that you're doing.
Great information, doctor. Really appreciate. Doctor, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, since you are ahead of the curve, you're already doing the online consultations. How can they get in touch with you?
They can always contact my secretary on 976 99 666 96, or they can go onto my clinic website, which is juvenis.in, and they can get all the information about me and my locations, and that way we can get in touch. An online video consultation can be organized via my secretary, who is helping patients get in contact with me via online. And that is the best way to be in touch with me, and I can provide them all the solutions for all their dermatological and cosmetological needs.
That's great, doctor. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll mention that in our blog as well. We really appreciate your time on this, and I hope you and your family stay safe during this time. We hope to do another session with you, once things slow down a little more on our side, get your more take on the medical side of the business. And I know you're visiting a couple of hospitals, but we really appreciate if you can take care of yourself also. That's most important.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And I pray for the safety of your family as well. Yeah. Be indoors, be safe.
Yeah, thank you so much, doctor. Really appreciate your time, and talk soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for having me. Bye.